sailboat in the moonlight and you. Wouldn't that be heaven? Oh, heaven just for two. A soft breeze on a June night and you. What a perfect setting for letting dreams come true.
Well, we're excited to bring you another edition of Backyard Boat Finds, and hopefully the sound's a little better than last week. I've been playing around with audio and I think I've got it sorted, but let me know in the comments if you're not happy with it. Today we're going to be looking at another boat that's local, a boat that we found that was actually left behind at the Marina, and the Marina owner is the one who's selling it. This boat isn't your typical blue water boat. In fact, it's usually considered one that is more of a coastal cruiser, but because of the year it was built in, its layup is extremely heavy, and the boat has a very high displacement ratio and is quite solid and quite comfortable. So many of them have crossed oceans, and certainly most of them have played around in the Great Lakes all of their lives, which are in some cases almost as difficult to sail in as at most oceans. As you know, we're trying to find boats for people who have a very small budget, perhaps just getting into the sport, and people who want boats that are capable of doing some blue water work. And so that's kind of been the criteria we've been sticking with, and I think this boat fits very well in that criteria. Well, here we are. It's a really crisp day out here, and the special boat we want to share with you today is this one right here, a Grampian 30. Grampian Marine Limited was a Canadian boat builder based in Oakville, Ontario, and later in North Carolina. The company specialized in the design and manufacture of a variety of fiberglass sailboats. Grampian was founded by Jim Bissaker in 1962 and stayed in business until 1977. Grampian's claim to fame was their tough little 26-footer with 980 examples built, making it one of the most popular Canadian cruising boats ever. Looks like somebody's had a new bowsprit made on this thing, and it might even be a new stern pulpit on it as well, because it looks like it's in really, really good condition. This. Well, we're on board. The boat is a little rougher than it appears at first sight, but if you very carefully look it over, you'll see it's probably quite easily repairable. So anyone who's a little bit handy could probably get this boat looking like $1 million again. It looks to me as if somebody has gone through the trouble of recovering all the fabric. So we've got this lovely blue sort of a tweedy fabric throughout, and it looks like it's all brand new. Some of the lining has come off here, which was also in that blue fabric, but I think this area probably would be better to be painted anyway. You cut down on the mold and mildew issues if you do. The bulkheads all seem pretty good. If I look around the perimeters of them, I'm not seeing any areas of extreme rot. There's a little bit of rot in the corner back here. How's this side here? Not seeing much in the way of rot here either. Nicely tabbed in. I'll tell you something about these boats. The Grampian 30 was an Alex McGruer design. Now, Alex was sort of an in-house designer for Grampian back in the late 60s, He designed this boat in, I believe it was 1969 was the first rendition of it that came out. And back in those days, Grampian was known for their 26. It was a hugely popular boat, and it was actually considered a yacht to most people back in those days. When they came out with the 30, my goodness, it was just the lap of luxury. And today, of course, we kind of laugh at that, but back then, it was really something if you had a 30. The Grampians weren't necessarily known for their quality, and what I mean by that is the finish wasn't the best on all of them, but the layup was very, very heavy. And part of that is due to the fact that they were built in the 60s and early 70s, late 70s, even into the 80s, I believe they built some of them, but we'll double check that. They were built during a time when the oil price was very, very low, and they built them with an excessive amount of material. So what you've got is a tank of a boat. I mean, an absolute tank of a boat. It's got a 45% displacement ratio, which makes it a very stiff boat and quite comfortable, actually. There's a lot of flat area underneath around the keel, and it is a fin keel too, so it's not going to track super, super well, and it's not going to be really comfortable when things get a bit lumpy. But it's going to be tough as nails. And I think if you want a boat that's priced right, and you want to do a little bit of blue water stuff, or some coastal cruising even, maybe go down to the Bahamas or the Caribbean, this is a great boat for doing something like that, and you can buy this thing for a song. So do you want to go through the positive stuff first or the negative stuff? I always like to look at the negative stuff first, and then we can end on a positive note. So let's do that. First of all, the big negative on this boat is that there are wooden stringers that support the floor throughout the boat. And sitting on top of those wooden stringers is some 3/4 inch plywood. Now the plywood has started to delaminate, and the stringers certainly have delaminated. You see here. However, there does seem to be a pretty substantial amount of wood left there that well, maybe not that one. Maybe not that one. So yeah, so this is going to be an issue. In order to repair something like that, you're going to need to lift up the plywood floorboards, which is not that big an undertaking, really. Remove the stringers. You can use the old stringers as a template, cut new stringers, install them. They're a plywood, like a marine plywood that somebody's epoxied. They don't offer structure to the boat per se. They offer structure to the floor only. Now, there's nothing to say you could not tab them in, but the way the boat was built, they were never a part of the structure of the boat. That's one negative. The second is I'm not entirely certain where the sails are, so that's going to be a challenge, and we'd have to talk to the owner and see where they've gone. This Marina has inherited this boat, so I'm not sure there's going to be any sails with it. The fabrics look great inside. I'd say other than, the other thing would be the paint on the outside. It seems like the paint's starting to peel away. Somebody tried to paint the outside and didn't do a good job. Again, that's not a huge undertaking. The boat is a little dirty. It's a little under-equipped, so you're going to need to put some effort into equipping it with electronics and what have you. But basically, a nice solid little boat. And now a few of the positives. By the looks of it, this boat had recently undergone a complete refit. I wouldn't call her well equipped, but what does come with the boat is in reasonably good condition. Things like a new marine head, full batten main, wind speed and depth instruments, a marine radio, and a nice stereo. Now I know it's a little dark in here and it might be hard to see, but one of the features I really liked about the Grampian 30 was its fold-away sink. A nice little space-saving feature. A previous owner had installed new opening ports, one in the head and two in the V-berth, providing nice cross ventilation up front. Grampian 30 has loads of storage space. Her U-shaped dinette converts to a bed, providing 6 sleeping areas for adults. It has been reported that her Atomic 4 engine runs well. It looks like it's going to need a little bit of service, mind you. She comes with a pressurized alcohol stove, ice box, 110 volt refrigerator for those days at the dock, and pressurized water with a nice big tank. We do have a bit of experience with these boats because we used to own one. It was a little bit older than this one, and just anecdotally speaking, the day that we bought it, we sailed it back from Kingston, Ontario, and it was the fastest trip from Kingston that we ever made before and since. And so they are a decent sailing boat, very, very comfortable, very, very solid, very, very predictable. That's a word I use, but you can predict sort of where the boat's about to go. Where some boats are a lot twitchier, these boats are a lot more comfortable that way. I also have another story. My brother-in-law used to own one, and we were out sailing as a family one time with 2 boats coming out of Thornbury and Meaford, Ontario, and the boats were converging upon one another, heading to Christian Island, a very popular spot to hang out, when all of a sudden we were hit by a microburst of some sort. The sky went completely black, the seas went straight to 10 feet, and the wind went up close to 100 knots. I think it was like 117 at one point, sustained at like 89, 90, something like that. Like it was the craziest wind we've ever had. The boat I was on, we took the sails down prior to the storm coming along, and we were just able to keep the nose into the wind throughout the storm. Dinghy flip. That's okay, it's coming. Need a hand, Captain? It didn't last very long, maybe 20 minutes or so. My brother-in-law, on the other hand, got knocked down, and he ended up standing. I'll show you here in the cockpit. He ended up standing on this surface because the boat completely went with the spreaders in the water. And they ended up, the boat righted itself eventually. But after that, I remember him saying to me that he will never doubt how tough these boats are again. I mean, what it went through. So, a nice little bit of testimony there for anybody who's considering buying a Grampian 30. Well, you can tell it's a cold day out here. If you just look behind me, you can see all the ice huts on the Bay of Quinte, famous for its walleye fishing, pickerel, as we call it. I don't know, there must be 25 guys out there right now fishing. It's a chilly one. What this represents is, that's the hull joint. That's where this keel locks into the hull with this tooth right here. Just filler. This is all adhesive and laminate right here, just like Bondo. Now, one thing you will encounter with these boats is many of them have a cast stem head fitting, and the stem fitting on this one has been replaced with stainless steel, which is the recommended way of dealing with that problem. As you can see, they're not a really wide boat, but for a 1970s boat they are super wide. It looks like this boat has had a significant restoration. at some point in its life. They've added special stanchion bases that go on the perforated tow rail. It's a lovely thing to have that on the outside. No stanchions to leak into the boat. Probably that's one reason it's in such good condition. Somebody's also added the bow pulpit, as I said before. They've added 2 anchor rollers. A pair of anchor rollers is a nice thing to have when you're cruising. I can't see why someone couldn't sink a little bit of money and a little bit of elbow grease into a boat like this, and in the end have a very good offshore, sort of semi-blue water cruising boat that they could go to the Bahamas with. Certainly for a couple, and definitely for a single. Pretty sweet little ride. If you want to support the creation of videos here at Wind Over Water, you can do so in several ways. One is to press the subscribe button right now. Also click on the little bell so we can send you notifications when we put a new video out. The other way is you can go to Patreon. There's a link below this video. At Patreon you can kick in $1 or $2 every time we make a video in order to help with the production costs. And be sure and join us next week when we have a look at another backyard boat find. Another way you can support, another way you can do that is by, another way you can do that,
Talk to me.